any behavior you want repeated, you have to emphasize that. So when he does do that, say, thank you so much. That's so helpful. It removes the guessing game. It helps me feel so much better when you just tell me what you're irritated about or what your boundaries are.
Otherwise, I'm in my head worrying that it's something else that, this other big problem.
And this takes practice, I know, and it takes awareness, but we've just gotten good at being able to voice these certain things. Like the very fact that you worded this question and you put this here, you just, with practice, learn how to word it in the moment to say, I feel like you're irritated about something, but I'm not sure what that is. And maybe you have some sort of boundary about this, but I don't know. I really just appreciate it when you tell me, so I'm not guessing. Like that time XYZ when you did it. You just have to learn how to be very explicit, very direct. And you can learn to do that without being like rude or harsh, but that is the thing that will start to make the changes, because then you're bringing awareness to the situation, which helps them to have more awareness of what they're actually doing. A lot of times people are doing things like that. They're not aware that they're doing it. It's automatic, subconscious, habitual behavior. It's like memorized behavior. They're not thinking about it. This whole process, the things we're talking about, it's not comfortable or fun or unawkward or, like those things will happen. But if we avoid it because of those things, then we never get past it to the point where it becomes more natural and just a part of your way of being. So we have to be willing to experience those emotions and, be willing to be uncomfortable saying something to our spouse that we know is a little bit edgy or, not like we're intentionally pushing buttons, but a little bit. Because bringing awareness to something is a little bit like pressing a button, but it's not done to manipulate or to control. It's done to have awareness and to create change and to process and work through. So when you do it from the right place, it still can definitely be uncomfortable. The outcome is not negative.
So I think visually, if this is helpful, it's taking the issue and setting it on the table instead of taking the issue and throwing it at your spouse. Right. If it's a brick, you're like, I'm going to set this on the table so we can talk about it.
Let's look at it and examine it.
Throw it at them and like, bam. And like, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to talk about it. And that takes some practice and some tact.
Just to kind of emphasize a final point here. Sometimes that's just as simple as bringing awareness to what's happening. Kind of like you're saying, taking the thing and setting it out in front of you in a way and saying, what is this? And one thing I will do is I'll just start naming things. I'm like, is this frustration, irritation, annoyance, anger? And, Greg used to not like that because he felt like I was putting words in the kids' mouths or whatever. But I like it because it's almost like this process of elimination. Because if I say, are you feeling irritated? He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, okay, we know it's not irritation.
She keeps pushing them like, now I'm irritated. Gosh, woman, let me think for a minute. Okay, I will say that in general, again, I'm generalizing. In general, men are slower to answer. So she's like, what are you feeling? And he's like, let me think about it.
And then I'll think, he didn't hear me. I'm going to ask again.
I'm thinking. Wait, and so she starts naming all these stuff. And I'm like, I'm still thinking, woman. Like, how can you expect me to identify my thing when you keep throwing the wrong thing at me? And so I'm just slower. And she's like, why aren't you answering me? I'm like, I told you I'm thinking.
Yes. So, that is a great thing to remember. So I've learned, I think, that I'll do that, but then I'll give it I'll say, oh, what are you thinking or feeling? And then I'll mention a couple things, but then I will wait. And then I'll remind myself and I'll say, men take longer to think.
I'm still waiting.
So I'm going to keep being patient. And I'll say that out loud so he knows I'm being patient.
I'm sitting here being patient. I said, babe, you asked me what I think, so I'm thinking about what I think.
Right. Which we have to remember.
She's like, why don't you think out loud? I'm like,
right.
I don't do that.
Because I think out loud. So when I'll be like, why aren't you thinking out loud? Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing, thinking out loud so we can figure it out together. But, you know, many men process internally. And so you have to give them that space to do that. I do like it with the kids, though, because I feel like, well, especially the girls, of course, and some of the boys, that if you give them, going back to kind of what we talked about with the list of emotions, if you give them some words, it's helping them identify what it is that they are feeling so that they can kind of put their finger on it, and that helps with the processing. So part of all of this that we're talking about, learning to process emotions, is bringing awareness, and that can simply be the process of helping to name emotions that we're feeling.
That's huge. And a very good, safe approach there. You say, could it maybe be frustration? Mm-hmm. Could it maybe be disappointment? And don't make declarative statements like, oh, I think you're feeling disappointment.
Yeah. Or I'll even say something like, I feel so frustrated when something like that happens to me. You know, so it's like I'm empathizing, but I'm voicing the feeling I would feel. And then they could say, yeah, you know, they
or let them say, no, it's not.
Well, no, I'm just angry because of this or whatever. So, but it starts the dialogue essentially.